So, hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast. And this, of course, who's excited, lads? It's the Jump Season 2020-2021 preview show and a first episode of the podcast for the new season. And where Champ.ie will be bringing the ultimate racing experience to Champ.ie listeners all across YouTube, Spotify, and Apple as well. So anywhere you listen to the podcast, you'll get us every Thursday for the rest of the season. I'm joined by the regulars, Mr. Thomas Coyle from Batterstone, County Meath, trainer, Roland Groom from the Irish Field, and Mr. Mike Vince from SAS as well. So a very exciting show coming up. Jane Mangan and David Mullins as well on the show. And lads, where better to kick things off? We're going to get straight into it, but the champion hurdle division. And Mike Vince, I want to talk to you about this, I suppose. Ante, she heads the betting. She's 4-1 at the moment. She's probably likely to go down the same route as she did for the second half of the season last year. We'd imagine Christmas hurdle. I suppose the Irish do have a challenge as well. We'll come to Thomas about that. But I suppose Ante, can you see her leading this division throughout the season, and how do you see this division playing out?
I thought it was a really messy division last year, if I'm being honest. I thought there were several that went to Cheltenham off the back of one win or whatever. We had one or two come out late on in the game, and you just think to yourself, yeah, she was the best horse on the day, don't get me wrong, but I didn't think it was a vintage champion by a very long way. And I think the title is a classic case in sport of titles are harder to defend than they are to win. Let's see how she comes on. She's still got questions from me to answer. I love that mare Honeysuckle, and I think if that's the route they go down with Honeysuckle, she's going to take all the beating. Obviously, we also wait to see what Willie Mullins is going to do with a few of his. In terms of what might go chasing and what might not. The problem I have is that I can see the champion hurdle being won by something that goes novice chasing and fails and comes back. It wouldn't be the first time.
Well, you mentioned Honeysuckle. I think Roland Groom was a speculative effort last year and gave us a lot of fun throughout the year speculating would she go champion hurdle or would she not. Obviously she was massively impressive up at Fairyhouse as well. Roland, just touch upon Honeysuckle. Can you see her going down the mare's route again, or would you say she will cross over and come into a champion hurdle picture?
I would like to think, Barry, that she would go for the champion hurdle this year if she arrived into Cheltenham in similar type of form. I just think it would be terribly unadventurous if you go back for the mare's hurdle again. Like, fair enough, they've gone and won it that year. You'd like to think they'd be aiming a bit higher this season. Look, she's so lightly raced that she mightn't even have got near her ceiling yet. So I thought in the race at Leopardstown she was jumping out to the right. That was her first real time going left-handed. So it just took her a while, and it wasn't really wrote about at the time or talked about that fact that it was really her first kind of real test going left-handed. And then she no real kind of problem at all doing that at Cheltenham. So I'd like to think if they definitely do stay over hurdles and they go for all those same races again, like she goes back to Leopardstown for the Dublin Racing Festival and wins or runs well, that they'd definitely be thinking about the champion hurdle this time, because it's one thing having the mare's hurdle, but she's gone and won that, and now they should probably go for the big one.
Absolutely. We'll be talking to Jane Mangan later in the show, and particularly just about, I suppose, the quality of mares staying in training and her views, I suppose, on the division as a whole. But sticking with the champion hurdle, just a very quick show of betting here. 4-1 Ante. This is Anti-Post. Abacadabras is 5-1. Goshen 8-1. San Ra, winner of the county hurdle last year, is 10-1. And Honeysuckle herself is 16-1. And it is 20-1 bar. Thomas, there is plenty of Irish, interest from at a distance. Abacadabras was a horse that you touted up last year, of course, as one of the novices to follow, and he went on obviously to finish second in the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Is he a champion hurdle horse? I mean, he was the last one off the bridle. You'd have to think the way he travels that he's going to, make up into a champion hurdle horse this year.
Yeah, look,
hopefully he could. Like himself and Siskin, you'd have to kind of put in that they were a long way clear. I think they were 11 lengths clear the third and the Supreme. So they're two horses that are interesting. We always kind of said as well, the way he travelled so well, maybe better ground. He didn't get it again last year. The ground was soft. Maybe if he could get good ground come March, it might help him get up a hill. Look, the Irish Angle is a bit, you two more that you could kind of bring into it is it's Triumph Hurdle form. They're in Aspire Tower and Burnham Victory, the winner of it. Aspire Tower, I think, might have a little bit more room for improvement. He's a very big horse. He got the fall at Leopardstown and maybe, but he still ran well. And to me, I know he's running the flat, but he still looks a big raw horse when you see him jumping hurdles. I don't know. Do you remember the first day he won in Punchestown? He was waving. Rachel was left and right at a few hurdles. So look, he could be one that could improve as well into that. I don't think Honeysuckle will go that way. I think she.
No, I don't think either. I don't think she'll go that way at all. I think the mares is there for her, isn't it?
Yeah, she might even go Novice chasing. You wouldn't know. She could be an Arco horse either. But look, yeah. Bar that, we haven't got a whole lot. If you look down the Ante post, you're looking at like Sharjah, Darver Star. He's gone chasing. I can't. Maybe Vince, if he doesn't come, he might go back. But to me, he jumped well enough around Punchestown that he'll improve. So yeah, maybe one other one we were actually chatting between ourselves was Garroyd O'Loughlin has got Course Sublime. We kind of pitched him up a few times last year when Down Royal came a pound. Look, he has to improve, but maybe into a smaller environment, a smaller trainer, getting a bit more attention, there might be a little bit more improvement, and he could be a lively outsider for a champion hurdle. I think he's 66 to 1 there. He could be worth a little punt at each way, you know.
Yeah, Mike, I want to ask you just before we move on from the champion hurdle about Goshen. Obviously, he's had the two runs on the flat, and like to me, I think I put up on Twitter there recently that he reminded me of a young Faheen, and again he got slated. Don't you dare use Faheen or Goshen in the same bracket as Faheen. Obviously, he's a long way to go, but he was well on his way to becoming the most impressive winner at last year's Cheltenham Festival. The way he travelled through the race, and he jumped a lot better, a lot cleaner as well in the Triumph Hurdle. For me, I think like obviously he's drifted out to 8 to 1, but like if you're willing to forgive him the two flat runs, I would be saying that 8 to 1 could look very, very big about Goshen.
Well, yes, and he has to do it, doesn't he? And I think the other thing is. Hands up all those who look at the champion hurdle and can't look beyond Mullins, Henderson, and of course Gordon. If Abracadabras goes, it'll be Gordon's. I can't think of another serious bash he's had at the champion hurdle, and Paul Nicholls. And I just think that it's a question also of what has it done to the horse's confidence. We know what it did to Jamie. Will the horse feel unnerved by it? I don't know. Again. It's messy, and I just would love something to come out and win something like the Christmas hurdle by 12-15 lengths in style and beat a decent field.
Just on Goshen as well, like I just thought the last day Hector Crouch didn't half spare him now when he kind of came off. I know he was at the end he kind of half stayed on again, but it was a kind of a do or die ride kind of for the horse. I thought personally watching it, like it wasn't a grand little introductory run that he was going. He was gunned out to go and do it, and
from a trainer's perspective, would that worry, or do you think that he like Gary Moore would have one day in mind like for him, and that's it's still October and the horse he's hard at it now at the minute, like like come March he's 6 months to go. I don't know. For me, he wouldn't be my cup of tea right at the minute now, unless he does do something in a Christmas hurdle or something. But maybe hurdles will liven him back up. But looking at his two flat runs, he wouldn't be for me anyway. Yeah, first plug for my 20 horses to follow, lads. Goshen. He's put him up at 6. He's gone out to 8. That's a great start, isn't it? I listen, I'd side with him. I think he is good value at this stage if someone was having a bet. There is one last horse I wanted to mention, and that was Master Debonair, right? And you might laugh at me, Thomas. You're ready for an Urga name already. But I think that, look, Ronan put up a speculative effort last year on Honeysuckle. Obviously, she was lightly raced and at the time. Master Debonair, he put 2 back-to-back performances together last year, and his time was very good at Ascot in the second last run. I suppose he met Sporting John then and was lame afterwards. He's a very big price, and I just think maybe, we didn't get to see the best of him in the novice division, and I just think he might be a sleeper in the market there, and his best price is 66 to 1. I think maybe, I think it was mentioned, or I heard mentioned maybe fighting fifth. It might be a good starting point for him. So, like, if he was to go and win a race like that, obviously he's going to be half the price that he is now. And just a horse that might be unfinished business. I would say he's probably rated too high now to be thinking about winning handicaps off his current mark. The fighting fifth as a starting point and see how they go from there. But definitely want to keep an eye on this Master Debonair. Just coming on, obviously we're going to look at the open hurdle division first. Stayers hurdle. I suppose last year it turned into a bit of a mess. I suppose Paisley Park was touted as the long-term, he was touted as the long-term favourite, and he didn't deliver on the day. So it is quite open. Roland, I might let you take us through the Stayers hurdle or division.
It's a difficult race to talk about, Barry, this far out. I guess I kind of think the Stayers hurdle division is like the Europa League, as if you were having a bet now. Like, no one actually wants to end up in the Stayers hurdle division. It's like a second choice, third choice, fourth choice even for most people. You don't actually buy, anyone going to the sales to buy their stores at Goffs or Tattersall's, they don't spend the 40-50 grand thinking this is going to be a Stayers hurdle horse. They're looking for a champion chaser or a Gold Cup champion hurdle. It's usually the horses that aren't fast enough for a champion hurdle and possibly failed chasers. Now, I suppose Paisley Park is a bit of an exception where he progressed through the ranks. He's quite clearly the best Stayer hurdle that there is around, and you just have to ask the question, I guess, what the story was in the race last year. Now, they've come out and said he had an irregular heartbeat. That would probably be a bit of a worry going forward. He has to come back and prove himself. But if he does, so say for instance he goes and wins at Newbury, I think they're going to go back to again. He's clearly, if he wins there, he's going to be 3-1, half the price he is now, because he's already been there and done it.
Interesting. One horse I don't think that we're going to be talking about as a Europa League horse before the end of the season is McFabulous, and he was very good at Chepstow on his first run, and I think the plan is to go to Newbury next with him. He was one that I've actually taken at 20 to 1, and look, I'm very interested in him throughout the year. I think if he wins at Newbury, he's going to be an absolute major player. I think I'd like to side with something like him that's maybe a little bit more progressive than maybe taking a leap of faith at this stage and going in on Paisley Park. He's definitely one of my horses to follow for the year. And to be honest, I really like him. He reminds me of that Big Bucks sort of with the nose band and the horse who's destined to be a chaser but ends up in a Stayers hurdle. Mike Vince, what did you make of McFabulous?
I was impressed. My thought about McFabulous is that he'd be a leading player if there was such a thing as a 2.5 mile hurdle. I just got a slight anxiety about the way he runs, whether he'd get the trip. Tyne Hill, I shared Ronan's view, was very unlucky, I thought, in the Albert Bartlett. But I mean, I've just asked you lads the question. The second, and when you look at the Stayers hurdle, and you find that, of course, Paisley Park wasn't the only one that failed to perform, because what was it? Liska Bar Oscar, who Ronald Pump was second. I mean, I think I went to school with his brother, and Hardy's was third. I mean, it was a total dustbin of a result all the way around. No disrespect to the winning connections. Do we just technically throw that day in the dustbin? I think Tyne Hill is one I want to see how he gets on, but he always struck me as a horse that would be at the top, and was. I certainly share the view, although I thought the winner was very good. I'm going to talk about him as a novice chaser. And I was in the conversation earlier with Patrick Mullins, who didn't put me off in 1 second. Monkfish. Tyne Hill is one I'm very much looking forward to seeing.
Fantastic. Well, I suppose that's the open hurdle division, lads. Before we talk novice hurdlers, we caught up with a friend of the podcast, David Mullins, earlier on to talk all things Close Sutton. Let's have a listen. So as we look ahead to the jump season 2020 and 2021, I'd be delighted to be joined on the on the Champ.ie podcast by a good friend of the Champ.ie podcast, Mr. David Mullins. David, of course, a lot has changed in the world since the last time we were speaking up at the Champ.ie Cheltenham preview night. I hope the hair is still looking as fresh.
It is, Barry. How are you? Yeah. No, we won't be in Dundalk for a while now, I'd say, with all these restrictions.
No, and how's life been? I suppose even though the national hunt now is coming back slowly. You've been in excellent form, David, and I suppose have kept reasonably injury free, and you're even riding 6 furlong winners on the flat.
Yeah, 5 furlong. Yeah, that was a surprise. I didn't have much rides after coming back from the lockdown. I was kind of only riding out at home. I wasn't even back in Willie's yet. It just happened to be light, and Dad asked me if I wanted to ride them. I said, yeah, I got 4 up there from that day, and the winner in a second and a winner over 5 furlongs. It's good to have something like that in the CV, something a bit different.
Bit patient. You might have a long way to go to get to Jamie Spencer's level, but it was a bit of last the first going on there, I think. Looking ahead to this season, David, I suppose 2 weekends ago you rode 2 nice mares to victory up at Fairyhouse. One obviously for your father Tom, a nice mare there, Court Maid, and also for Paul Hennessy, who's traditionally, I suppose, in training dogs. Heaven help us. They both look, I suppose, like they could be smart enough prospects. Sticking with maybe Court Maid, she's won 3 on the bounce, and even though she's a novice, would the new mares race at Cheltenham be maybe in the back of your minds?
Oh, well, you can be guaranteed it's in the owner and the trainer's mind anyway, that's for sure. It's difficult. She's a very good mare. She has plenty of talent, but she's sort of big and gangly and a funny old stride, and things have to go her way. She can't hit flat spots in her races. If you could get her within 10 lengths turning in Cheltenham, you'd be fairly sure she'd make her best of the way up the hill. But they're just. We have a lot of time with her. We could get plenty of experience under her belt and freshen her back up again for Cheltenham. And if she turned up there, I'd be fairly sure she wouldn't be out of the money.
Yeah, and you mentioned her warming into her races. I mean, the further she went, the better she seemed to jump. It was a cracking ride, I have to say, David. And as you said, the further she went, would maybe something like even though she is a novice. There's another race, maybe with the TS Days is a local, obviously, to yourselves, a local race, local track, and one maybe you might be willing to support.
Yeah, definitely. But she's only a mare. She's a novice. She's 1-2 now. Let her warm up into it. You wouldn't be going chucking her into a big handicap like that. That's a very competitive race. You'd be hoping she might find a listed mare's chase or something like that, or a listed mare's novice or something. Start off and only go you have to go, and if she's not up to that, you might have a nice handicap mark, and you could well go for a race like that off a lightweight and a tough, honest mare that jumps okay and stays well, and you'd have a right good ride in it. Yep. And
the celebrations, I suppose, at home that night were pretty good. We must mention younger brother Charlie, of course, who rode his first winner, was it, on the track in the bumper on the same card? A horse for your dad.
Charlie rode his winner. I'm just finishing watching him here riding in the bumper in Tipperary. He didn't get on as well, but Charlie's a big tall fella. He's over 6 foot, and he's fairly heavy. He might get a lot of time. He could be more in the Patrick Mullins world for a while, maybe in the saunas when they come back racing, but. He's very strong, and he's a hell of a lot better than I was when I was his age.
I remember you up on a bumper on Princely Con up in Galway. You might remember that. That's a while ago now, David.
Yeah, I wasn't too bad on him, but I had a couple of years under the belt by that stage, and he did go on to be third in the Galway hurdle, so I didn't need to be strong on him either.
And is Charlie? He's obviously still in school, and has he made it up to Close Sutton, or does he stay at home with your dad?
Charlie's still in school. I think wherever the wind blows him, that's where he goes in and rides out. Most mornings, either Mags, Willie, Dad. He's plenty of options to ride out with, but he's definitely value for the 7 anyway. And I wouldn't be giving him anything easy, but I will say he's value for the 7.
Brilliant stuff. Sticking, I suppose, with your dad, and it could be you, obviously, was a nice winner in the bumper there at Fairyhouse 2 weekends ago. We mentioned that. But Gavin Cawley has tweeted in to Champ.ie and asked us basically, are there any other, I suppose, younger horses or bumper horses that you like at home in Tom Mullins's?
Well, in Willie's, they haven't started back working yet. Obviously, they're very. Willie always takes his time and gears them up for the spring. But there's obviously, they're all lovely at the minute. None of them has done any work, came off the bridle yet, so they're all lovely at this stage. I see there Deploy the Getaway. He was just starting to work last year. He actually ran away with me in a piece of work, and he is gorgeous. I broke my back then. I don't know what happened to him, but we didn't see him on the track. I see him there. He's flying around at the minute, and he's obviously the one. There's been a lot of anticipation for, so you'd be really looking forward to him as probably the main champion bumper horse. He was in the same bracket this time last year as Appreciated and Fernie Hollow. This time last year we couldn't split the three of them, so that's the sort of level you're talking about with regards anticipation. Yeah,
he was a mighty winner, of course, and his point to point was all the rage. And I suppose moving on then to Close Sutton and the juggernaut, I suppose, for the season ahead. You must be excited about the opportunities this winter. You'll be hoping, obviously, for a bit of better luck with injury. And how forward, I suppose, are Willie's horses at this stage?
Sure, they're nearly up to working now, yeah. There's a few of them making nice shapes and stuff like that. But as I said, it's Willie hasn't done anything with them to confirm any sort of real ability yet. They all just make nice shapes at the minute, and they're big fine horses, these big yards. They're all going to be nice horses and bought from top places and by the right sires. Of course, everyone's excited about them, but it's about keeping them sound and getting to the race course. Yeah. And
Faheen's still there, knocking around.
He's still there. There's not a bother on him. I remember last year going in to Willie's. I was after getting out of hospital a few days, and the one horse that took the eye out of my head was Faheen. How well he came up the gallop on the heavy gallop. Like, it's for a 12-year-old, or he was probably only 11, he's turning 12. To be doing that, he's an absolute freak. He's a monster.
Monster. Apart from the ones mentioned, I suppose, what is your one Willie Mullins horse that you're looking forward to this year?
Appreciated.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a simple question and a simple answer anyway for me, I think. He makes all the right shapes. I'd say he's going to be brilliant to jump. Maybe a trip might be suited. I imagine Willie will start him off at 2 mile, and he'd have no bother getting 3 mile. He could be a Gold Cup horse. He could be a Supreme Novice horse this year. You just wouldn't know, but he's a beautiful horse.
Yeah, done a lot of course, the work in the champion bumper, and Paul Townend, I think, came from the clouds.
Paul stole the champion bumper. It's a funny race, and once won the champion bumper, been dropped out last, Relegate, Fiona, and obviously Fernie Hollow. 3 of the last 4 years they've been run. They've won it dropping out Stonewall last. So sometimes I'd say that could be just their way to ride the race, but I forgive and appreciate getting beat by him. I think he's going to be a better horse this year again as well.
And do you think the two of them, like Fernie Hollows and Appreciated, they might start off over I suppose the minimum distance, and depending on which way it goes, then Willie might look to split them?
Yeah, I'd imagine that's the way it goes. Fernie Hollow now, you'd want to be Iron Man to ride him around in a 3 mile race. I'd say he'd pull the arms out of you. So I remember Paul Townend said he gave him a squeeze coming down the hill, and he said he was lucky there was no horse in front of him, because he just would have ran straight through them. He could be a bit of a freak and hard to handle, as we've seen in his bumper, his first run and his second run. He's very free and keen, and maybe a hurdle will sort that out in a year's more experience. But he is a bit of a loose cannon, but sometimes they can be the best of them too.
Yeah, you mentioned David A1 at last year's Champ.ie Cheltenham preview night. You said he was a horse that was obviously going to make a better chaser. I know he has been mentioned for the likes of the...
Sorry, which horse was this?
A1.
Oh,
A1, yeah, and I suppose you did mention that he was going to maybe potentially make a better chaser. RSA National Hunt Chase has obviously been mentioned, but Paddy Pacer asks on Twitter, this might take A1 into it, which of the novice hurdlers from Willie's last year are you most looking forward to going chasing?
Well, you have to look forward to seeing Monkfish. You look at him and you say there's no way he can win a hurdle race around Cheltenham. He's too big. Hurdles are just going to get in his way, and maybe even Cheltenham might be a bit tight for him. But he won in Cheltenham last year, and all he is a chaser. So, if latest exhibition and was it Fury Road, and I think Philip Hobbs' horse might have been
Tying Hill.
Yeah, they filled the frame, but you'd have to imagine this lad's just going to be much better as a chaser. And I'd forgive him even if he did get beaten as beginner's first time out. I think he got beaten the maiden hurdle in Fairyhouse last year as well. He's just a monster of a horse. He's huge. Not the strongest looking horse you've ever seen, but you'd imagine he's always going to stay improving and stay galloping.
And sticking with the novice chase groups, Lloyd Murphy asks on Twitter, could a Nurga name be an Arkle type horse, in your opinion?
He could be. He was very impressive in his maiden hurdle in Gorn, I think. He could be. As I said, we didn't really get to see the best of him last year. He won his maiden late on in the year. He won a bumper in Thurles and won his maiden in Gorn. We didn't really get to see what he could have done as a novice. Album photo as a novice hurdler, won his maiden late enough, I think, as well, and went on to Fairyhouse and won a grade 2. We didn't. I know Gremain could have fitted into that sort of category as well, but we just didn't get to see him. Album photo was a second string. It was second string a lot of the time. I ended up riding him a few days. Paul Townend ended up riding him. He was second string a good few times. There's sometimes just horses that miss out on maybe getting a hard race in Cheltenham. They can often be better for it the next year.
Yeah, he also asked Lloyd about Deploy to Getaway, but we've mentioned him. Is there any other horse, I suppose, that will run in bumpers that that you keep an eye on at least?
I've seen a few horses there. I've seen Cool Jet is one. I think he won a pint like Jetaway. As I said, all you can do is just pick them off of looks at this stage. They're all doing every bit of work the same that they're doing. Nothing hard or strenuous yet, but he is one that took my eye, and I seem to ask what he is every morning. So that's my way of going at it. If you have to ask what a horse is 2 or 3 times in the week, you're seeing 200 horses a day. But if you have to ask what that horse is 2 or 3 times, I think that's a sign that you like one.
Brilliant, David. And you had, I suppose, a fantastic relationship with Kimboy. Obviously, one day
I had to land it up on my arse at the back of the first in the goal go.
Yeah, I suppose last season we didn't see the best of him, and obviously you couldn't partner because you were injured. But I suppose is he one maybe that could go under the radar for a Gold Cup? Like, you wouldn't give up on him yet, would you?
I thought last year in Leopardstown, his 2 runs, he looked very lethargic and fat, and I thought maybe he might come on in Cheltenham. He never picked up the bridle. I don't know what his problem was. As I said, I wasn't riding him. Looking from the outside in, if my view or my view is anything to go on, I'd be sticking a set of cheek pieces on him or something. He hasn't been ready. He used to be very keen. I didn't see him pick up the bridle once last year, so. In Cheltenham, I think he landed on a few fences as well, just not travelling and making silly errors. If he was on the bridle, I don't think he'd do that as much.
And just coming on to the mare division, obviously Belly the Jew, the mare's chase, I suppose she has the option of that, and she's already ran well over fences in the past.
On her over fences, she's a better jumper of a fence than a hurdle even. That's how good she is over a fence.
And Concertista, of course, is one that She could come in. She could come into it.
She's a big mare. I don't see it, to be honest. She won in Cheltenham well. She didn't look to jump. She jumped all right in Cheltenham, but I haven't seen her jump too well too many other days. So she threw away the race last year, making the Hames of the last. I've seen her kick a few hurdles down out of the ground and trying to win maiden hurdles last year as well. As a mare going chasing, I'm not sure that works.
One horse that just want to pick up on before we go on to targets for the season and maybe a dark horse, David, is just Allaho. He was one, I suppose, that was touted for the Marsh and RSA. Eventually he went RSA. A lot of people are talking about him now coming back and might be targeted something like a Ryanair. Shorter distance may suit. He seemed to, I suppose, do a lot of the work, a lot of the donkey work in the RSA and coming back and trip. Do you think that's going to suit?
Yeah, it could. He got took on way too early last year and both horses got beat. They set it up for something coming from the clouds, and it's exactly what happened. They're animals, not machines. For that reason, I'd like to think that maybe if they came back and they were as positive over a shorter trip, they probably could do something similar over the shorter distance. But Allaho is a big, huge horse. I think he's the tallest horse in the yard. It's either him or the Big Getaway. And I just think he could pick up his feet a bit better. Last year he just seemed to bend his knees and just step out over the fences. I think this year he'll be a bit stronger. He'll be able to pick up his legs, move his shoulders. And I have no doubt he'll improve all right.
Brilliant stuff. And for yourself, David, this season, have you set a personal target for the season ahead? Obviously, if you could, I would imagine staying clear of injury would be number one, but is there any sort of marker that you want to get to in terms of winners?
No, I don't have any targets at all. Stay doing what I'm doing. I'm riding out there 6 days a week in Willie's. Just put all my eggs in one basket now and try and get a few rides. That's really all I think anyone can do now. I don't think the stage of going into different yards and being a freelance jockey, I don't think it works anymore. I think you just have to go into yards and try in the back of the queue and hopefully you get a bit of luck somewhere.
And at the Champ.ie preview night last year, David, you nearly took out Paddy Powers. I think it was one was 66 to 1, the other one was 40 to 1. I can't even remember the exact prices, but you put up an each way double on the night. So you're able to pick a dark horse. I want you to pick maybe one dark horse for the Champ.ie listeners, just for the year.
I think if Chatham Poursois shows up in the champion chase, he's not a dark horse. He's probably favoured. Well, I can't find anything in the 2 mile division to get anywhere near him. Altior and Defi Desai, you'd like to think they were going past their sell by date. If you were a Chatham Poursois fan, I think having a few pound on him maybe for the champion chase, I think you're just backing him to show up.
Good stuff, David. Listen, brilliant to chat to you, and the best of luck for the season, and congratulate Charlie for me on his winner, and we'll be talking to you throughout the year, I'm sure.
Perfect, Barry. Thanks a million and best of luck.
Brilliant. So brilliant to hear from David Mullins once again, and glad to hear, lads, that his hair is in good nick. During the lockdown period, we haven't spoke to David since the Champ.ie preview night at Dundalk, of course, all those months ago back in March. Novice hurdler for the season, Thomas Coyle. We'll have to mention Handicappers last year because I think it was something like 25 to 1. You put him up as a potential supreme novice horse. Mike Vince, I remember you mentioned the big breakaway on last year's season preview, and Ronan Groom, there's no pressure here. I think 6 shooters still running, although he did win last week. Thomas, we'll come to you. Can you back up last year's performance on the jump season preview?
Look, it's not going to be. Everyone's kind of going to know these horses, but 2 that I think will go on. I think Fernie Hollow. Look, it's the bumper form. I think Fernie Hollow will be hard beat in the Supreme if he goes, and maybe hurdles might help him as well, just settle a little bit for the year coming. And I think the horse that was second, Appreciate It. I think he's the one for the Ballymore. Look, it's not too often he was a point-to-point winner, and it's not too often that Willie starts him off in a 2.5 mile bumper. So he obviously thought he was going to stay as it is. So you can imagine he'll take a step forward to the Ballymore. Two others just from that race as well that you can follow, and Gordon's had them out already, and they've just scraped home. But I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of improvement in them. Is Queen's Brook and Eastkey Lane. They both won last week, and he's had them out good and early. So you can imagine he'll be tipping away in a novice hurdle, maybe in Down Royal or something next week. But there too as well, maybe early season they've got the run into them that you can be looking for. The two for me is Fernie Hollow for the Supreme and Appreciate for the Value.
Brilliant, Thomas Kyle. I suppose the natural instinct sometimes is to try think outside the box, and after hearing Thomas's comments there, and David actually, two seriously talented horses, you'd have to think, and obviously Appreciated. David really, really likes him. That's his horse to follow for the year. We just heard from him, but I suppose the one thing I would say, Ronan, is it's easy to kind of get carried away and look for horses at big prices, but is it staring us in the face? I think the comments from David there was, Paul gave Fernie Hollows one squeeze coming down the hill, and he said if there was a horse in front of him, he would have ran through it. Some seriously talented horses, young horses to go hurling from Close Sutton this year. Should we be looking any further?
Yeah, you're probably right, Barry. Sometimes you can look too hard at trying to find the bigger priced ones. Like last season, you spent every single podcast trying to get Envoyala beat, and I think you didn't accept it till right at the end.
Well, in fairness, the Siskin was one of the horses we flagged up at the start of the year. I think if he'd ran against Envoyala, he would have given him a right good race.
A Shishkin. Yeah, look, I guess everyone knows about those horses now, so I kind of wanted to talk about a few ones that people might not know about. Now, novice hurdlers is very hard to really pin them down. You're only really talking about what you've heard, but two I did want to say, and Patrick did mention them. I was on the same call as Mike earlier on, press call, and Patrick did mention one, Gentleman to Me. He's going to run for JP McManus. He's a 4-year-old gelding by St. He can cost £280,000 at the Arcana sale. Half brother to As the Me. I'd be looking out for him. It was interesting that Patrick just mentioned him when he was asked a few novice hurdlers to follow. The other one he mentioned was Saint Sam, another Santa Sans. Now, he's only a 3-year-old, so I don't know what they might end up and are going down a different route. I'm not sure. But he'd be interesting as well. Another one by Santa Sans. I think he runs in the Donnelly colours. I'm not 100% actually. So there'd be two. Gentleman to Me is interesting. He's a big purchase for JP, and that's the road JP has been going down recently, buying the horses from France. And obviously he's had terrific success with hurdlers, going down that route. Obviously Epitante winning the champion hurdle last season. So I'd be looking out for them when hearing. I think I believe Fly Smart is back in training as well. The big hype horse this time last year for the Supreme. He runs in the Richie colours. So yeah, I, without giving you facts and figures, because we just haven't seen these horses yet, but they're the whispers I'm hearing down here.
Mike, Vince, anything to add?
2 words. Israel Champ.
Oh, I suppose you've the direct line into David Pipes. What's he saying?
I loved that horse when he won in the run-up to the festival, but the ground, it just didn't go for him in the bumper. And I think it was a combination of the ground, lack of experience, and as always, the bumper turns out to be the race that resembles the M50 around Dublin at about 8:15 on a wet Monday morning. In terms of, there's hard luck stories all over the place. I think he's potentially a very smart novice hurdle. He might give us a decent bit of fun at a decent price.
Mike, you've stolen my thunder. That was my dark horse to follow. You stole my thunder.
Well, when do I go to court on burglary? And actually, the other one that David ran in that bumper as well. I was quite impressed with the Ton had a run, is Panic Attack, of course, one for Willie Mullins, one of the listed. Was Willie Mullins landing at Market Race at Nav. He sent Panic Attack to Market Drews afterwards, and I think that's another one. But Israel Champ's the one I've been waiting for.
You've given me a nice lead into my one, Mike, because I think Soaring Glory, who finished second to Israel Champ, on ground I don't think he would have appreciated as a bumper horse last year. He was very impressive, very strong travelling type, and we've already seen him this season. And I think the race at Chepstow, where we saw Soaring Glory just getting up under John O'Neill Jr. to beat Brave Man's Game, I think that will prove to be a good race in time. And he is definitely... Look, I've taken 40 to 1. I think he can still get like 33s for him, but I think he's a good horse, and he's going to improve an awful lot for that. And I think he could take high rank among the novices this year. Just another one I'd like to mention as well. Again, it's the other side of the water. It's away from the obvious of your Fernie Hollows and your Appreciate. It's High Polloi. Of Emma Lavelle. Now, I think this horse could be quite smart. Again, he's a bumper winner last year. He was bought for 120,000 at the Land Rover sales. And look, he caught me. I think it was a good race at Kempton, a good bumper. Sometimes it can be hard to tell, but he encountered so many problems in running that day. Literally had to be brought around the whole field, and she had a smart turn of foot. I am looking forward to seeing him going over hurdles as well. And just to mention as well for Kesgon risk. So Joseph O'Brien that's a recruit gone to Joseph O'Brien. Henrietta Knight paid big bucks for this horse. He's 50 to 1 for the Supreme Novices Hurdle. Look, I'm not telling anyone for a second to be going steaming in at that sort of price, but definitely want to keep an eye on, I think, in novice hurdlers. Thomas, you might know, he won a bumper up at Fairyhouse for Timmy Hyde on New Year's Day last year.
Yeah, vaguely remember. I think the race broke up and there was only 2 runners in it. He wasn't unsupported that day, I remember. Yeah.
Gorgeous looking horse. He cost 350,000 at Doncaster. Henrietta Knight picked him up for a new owner. Well, not a new owner, but an owner who's got quite has spent a bit of money of late. It's Mike Gretsch. Not Mike Vince, Mike Gretsch. So
when they have a price tag of 350,000, they'd want to be pretty good looking, all right. So
no, he was impressive, but you're right. The race did break up. But he's gone to Joseph O'Brien. So be interesting to see how he gets on. Yes. Novice chasers to follow. Ronan Groom.
I have 2. One I absolutely love, and I mentioned him last season quite a lot. Easy Work. I think we just saw Unaccepted win this week at Tipperary. Absolutely blew his rivals away. Easy Work beat that horse by 22 lengths at Limerick last St. Stephen's Day. And if you look at his run after that, he's run second. They've dropped him down in trips for the 2 mile grade 1 at the Dublin Racing Festival. He's ran second there to Asterion for launch. They've come back up in trip for the Ballymore. Watch the start of the race. He runs way too freely. It took him a while just to settle down, Rachel, to get him to settle. And he's still there coming down the hill, and he's still the horse that gives Envoyala most to do. The front three have come clear there. I think that's really strong form. The big getaway was third. They love that down in Mullins as well. I'm a huge fan of Easy Work. And I'd be very interested to see what route they go. I think it will be at least 2.5 miles. Now, the problem is there's a certain MYLN knocking about for Gordon Elliott as well. So you have to factor that into where he goes. For races that would seem obvious to him, like the Grimmore over 2.5 miles of Fairyhouse, mightn't go there because MYLN might be given first choice. 3 miles is an option as well. So races like the RSA Chase, long term. I am really looking forward to seeing Easy Work run just on his scope, because he's a Jigginstown chaser, and a lot of Jigginstown horses are going to be better over fences. And if he just learns to calm down a bit in his races, I'd be really interested in him. The other one I wanted to mention was Elfile, who's a mare for Willie Mullins. She ran really well in the Mayor's Hurdle, which I think is actually a really strong form. He probably taken that from a huge Honeysuckle fan, and I wanted to run. I think Honeysuckle's form to beat Benny to do there is stronger than Epitance in the Champion House. Elfile, I think, is really interesting when she goes up and trip. Again, she hasn't had a chance at that trip yet. But even going back to her run at Fairy House that year, when she came through the pack, she finished second to Honeysuckle there in the 2.5 mile Mayor's final. I thought that was a really good run, and just some of these Mayors for Willie, they just don't get the chance really because he has so many good ones. I'd love to see her like unshackled this year over facing. Might mix it between the two, but I'd love to see her get unshackled and given a real chance to progress. She only had 4 runs last season, and especially up and trip as well. She's really exciting. So Elfile and easy work for me.
Sticking with Willie Mullins, though, Ron, because you're after mentioning Elfile. Look, I'm going to have to mention it, lads. An Organ name, I think, we don't know, obviously, but I'm looking at Willie Mullins for the Arkle because of his record, obviously, in the race in recent seasons has been phenomenal. I think Willie, particularly this year, has a good bunch of hurdlers going chasing. Monkfish is obviously another one. But an Organ name, look, when mentioned to David, I mean, he didn't see, he sort of said that obviously we didn't see him at Punchestown last year. He won his maiden hurdle at Gorham Park the day before Cheltenham. Look, I just think he's very, very interesting because he could be anything over a fence. Willie has obviously said that he's excited to see him going chasing. He said he should have the ability to be on the boat next year, which is obviously next year at Cheltenham. And similar profile, as David said, to like the likes of an album photo or cashback. We don't really know. We can't really judge him on his novice hurdle form because he didn't face the best. Was going to be a chaser, so no. Look at
judged anyway, lad. He's up there for you.
Exactly. No. Look at. I think I'm very excited to see him. Obviously, we've made that known. Monkfish is Mike. You mentioned Monkfish. How exciting is he?
Well, I think he's the one I was been waiting for. I mean, and again, we've been fortunate that Ronan and I have had a chance to listen to Patrick talking in the last 24 hours. But the point that Patrick mentioned, I think is quite relevant, is that this is an ex-point-to-point horse, and therefore should know its way. It should be a natural over fences, shouldn't mind the ground. I think he is potentially extremely exciting. But obviously, I've also got a horse written in large letters on this piece of paper in front of me called The Big Break. I haven't lost faith in him one iota, and from the very first time I spoke to Joe Tizard, they always said anything this horse does over hurdles is in the bonus bin.
He's a monster, isn't he? He was purchased for a big figure. Was it at Punchestown? I think he was sold at the sales. But yeah, what was your thoughts on him? I suppose last year, was he just a big weak baby, or I think he was quite young, wasn't he? Is he only 5-year-old? Is he?
Yeah, as I said, he was learning. He got his L plates up, but like all of us, we get better with age, don't we? And he is a natural born chaser. That's what they got him to do this season. We're going to see how he gets on. I'm really excited about him.
Brilliant stuff, lads. Champion Chase Division. Ronan Groom, we have to mention last season, Politologue. You put him up at 20-1 on last year's season preview.
Probably went off a bigger price on the day.
No, I don't think he did. Shakan Boursois, of course, if he'd have lined up, he would have went off 50-1. But talk us through this division, Ronan. Give us a selection. I'll give you a show of betting very quickly for the champion chase at this stage. Shakan Boursois, of course, heads to betting at 5-1. Altior 8-1. Defi de Sol 8-1. I personally think he might step up and trip as the season goes on. A Plutard 14-1. Put the Kettle on, last year's Arkle winner, 16-1. Politologue 16-1 if you want to go there again, Roland. And Allaho, can't see him dropping down that far trip. He's 20-1, 20 to bar the rest. Is there anything there, suppose, sticking out at the same sort of value as Politologue, or will he be going there again?
Yeah, sorry, Politologue would have been the same price on the day, but the week before he would have been a much bigger price because the race on the day just absolutely fell apart. It was going to be the race of the festival last year, and it really turned into a damn squib with Champ.ie and Ante coming out so late, and then Defy de Sol absolutely bombing on the day. It was left to the grey horse to take advantage, I guess. And he did, in fairness. He's a good horse around Cheltenham, a rock solid 2 mile chaser, and he was the best on the day. A very interesting division again. Obviously, the 2 mile champion chase division is always exciting. I just think it's wide open this year for something to come true. Chacun Pour Soi is 5-1 favourite. Look, he's obviously clearly one of the best chasers around. That form at Leopardstown last season to beat Min at the Dublin Racing Festival, that was a serious race. The front two, himself and Min, have come clear that day. I think Min is a seriously underrated horse. Patrick Mullins said as much on the call today as well, and he went on to win the Ryanair. So I think Chacun Pour Soi, you'd be hard bet to say that he wouldn't have won the race if he went to it last season. It's just whether he stays injury free. He's an 8-year-old now. He's only had a handful of runs. We only saw him once as a novice. He's obviously exceptional on his day, but can you advise anyone to back him a 5-1 this far out from Cheltenham? I don't think you can. Altior will be 11. The stats aren't great for 11-year-olds. Obviously, Moscow Flyer won this race as an 11-year-old, so you wouldn't completely write him off, but you're just looking for a younger horse to come through. Defy de Sol is 14-1 now. If you rule out his run in the champion chase, which maybe other people wouldn't be as forgiving, he probably has the best all-round form over 2 miles last season. Put the kettle on. Look, she was a good winner of the Arkle. She clearly goes very well around Cheltenham. I guess you just have the Mayor's Chase option for her there now. So if you are backing her, you would have that at the back of your mind. Look, Fakir de Duries is an interesting one. He was second to her in the Arkle. The Arkle is obviously a very good feeder race for the champion chase the next season. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. And I was just interested in a couple from the March chase that might come down and trip, the likes of Sam Crow. What are they going to do with him? Will they stay intermediate trips? He'd be interesting over 2 miles. Mr. Fisher, I thought, is very interesting as well, coming back to 2 miles. He's very good 2 mile form as a juvenile hurdler. He won it wasn't a juvenile hurdle. He won at Kempton anyway. I think it was the Adonis hurdle. That was 2 miles on good ground around Kempton. That's interesting for him. If they did decide to come back and trip. And Battle Over Diane, I asked Gordon about him the other day, and I thought it was very interesting that they want to try him over 2 miles. I think they go for the Fortria chase at Navan. He was a huge talking horse around this time last year. So they're trying something with him just to see if he can get to that sort of potential. So in a roundabout way, I'm not completely sure about the market at the moment, Barry, but I'm interested for any of the horses that do move into this division, because I think it is ripe for a new horse.
Yeah, interesting. Yes, interesting that I suppose a new horse can step up, but I think like you're looking at a price of 5-1 now for the champion chase, Chacun Pour Soi. I think, look, essentially, David said it as well. Like, essentially, what you're backing is that he shows. You're betting that he shows up fit and well. Now, obviously, he's been fragile. He's probably going to go the same route as last year, Dublin Racing, Leopardstown Christmas, Dublin Racing Festival, and then on to Cheltenham. Just the Altior Defy de Sol thing, like they're second and third in the market. I couldn't be going near either of those. I mean, I was never convinced that Defy de Sol, he was that real 2 miler, even as good as he was last year. I know you're probably saying, hindsight, he disappointed in the champion chase, but he just never, the way he jumps, he never strikes to me as an out and out 2 miler. And Philip Hobbs did suggest, and he was reluctant to rule out that he'd even run over 3 miles this year. Obviously, he's starting off in the slow chase, if that's what you call it, at Cheltenham in November. That's his first target, but just wouldn't be surprised if we saw him stepping up in trip as the season goes on, and it would not surprise me at all to see him actually enter the fray for something like a King George, which I suppose at this stage looks mega impressive. We'll come on to stayer chasers at the moment, but I'm just looking down the market and thinking, what really is the alternative to Chacun Pour Soi? And if he didn't have injury problems, if he hadn't have had injury problems to date, and don't forget last year stone bruise, so people are probably hyperinflating that, the situation or scenario. It was just unfortunate on the day. And for me, I don't know, Mike, what your thoughts are on this, but I think you're essentially backing 5-1 that he gets there, and he's gonna if nothing else steps up. I know Roland's saying the likes of Sam Crow or Horse maybe coming back and trip, but I can't help but think maybe that's value.
Well, the vibes out of Calentra are that Sam Crow and the Ryanair are supposedly is supposed to be his target. I just like Thomas is the trainer and the man who knows these things. But my understanding of what happened to Chacun Pour Soi at Cheltenham is that they were just desperately unlucky. And if the champion chase had been 48 hours later, he probably would have raced. It was a very, very short-term injury, and it couldn't have happened at, what was it, 10:30 on the morning of the race. If you wanted bad timing, that was it. Am I right, Thomas?
Yeah, you're right. Like, so a stone bruise technically is where a horse would puncture or something would penetrate the sole of the foot. So literally, you get your farrier, he can open it up. It's like an abscess boils up in the foot. You put a poultice on, 24, 36 hours, it's out. You can get, the farrier comes in, puts a pad on under the shoe. You're literally good to go. It's very unlucky. Like it is. It's when most horses trainers see them lame, the first thing we go for is the foot and hope it's on fire, that it's a stone bruise. But it's a very simple thing, but it does cost you that 36, 48 hours. And
I actually thought Chacun Pour Soi versus Min at the Dublin Racing Festival in February was as good a 2-mile race as I've ever seen. And of course, the trouble is we've lived on processions, haven't we? With Altior, and before that, Sprinter Sacra, and before that, Masterminded. So to see a proper 2-mile race was a real, and I thought that was an exceptional race. I think he's potentially very, very good Chacun Pour Soi.
Absolutely agree with you, Mike Vince. Think he is arguably the best horse in training at the moment. People are probably saying Voyalan, but I think he's exceptionally talented. Chacun Pour Soi. Lads, we are going to come on to the stay and chase division, and I suppose it doesn't just revolve around Cheltenham Ante-Post. We have a whole, I suppose, season here now, starting with obviously the Betfair Chase, moving on obviously to the King George. We also have Lexus Chase, the Hennessy. We've loads of races to go at. But Thomas, just on the division as a whole, the Irish angle this year, Album Photo probably going to go to Tramore. You come down the list, Manila Endo, Delta Work, you liked them, Presenting Percy's now gone to Gordon Elliott. Allaho, could Allaho go up and trip, even though he looked, I suppose, more of a Ryanair horse after the RSA? How do you see the Irish angle for the staying division this year?
Yeah, well, Gordon has a nice few hands. Like getting Presenting Percy, I was a big fan of him last year. I think it's the small man kind of losing out there in Pat Kelly. But look, if there's going to be improvement, Gordon's going to get it out of him. He's seen him working. I've seen snaps of him working that the other day, so he's probably not that far away from a run. Yeah, Delta Work as well. He ran well in the Gold Cup. I don't know. He maybe just lacks being from that top end. It was a great race last year. The 8-year-olds took over with Album Photo. As you said, Willie's not going to break what's not broken. He'll go to Tramore and New Year's Day, and then straight to Cheltenham, I'd say. The other horse that I really liked last year that we followed from a personal point was Lost in Translation. I thought he ran an absolute blinder last year because Colin Tizard, Michael even probably know more of this, but Colin Tizard's horses did not fire at Cheltenham last year. For him to get so close, was that the only horse he had placed actually in the Cheltenham Festival last year? Mike might know a bit more than that. But I thought he ran a cracker. But I think he will find it hard maybe to turn the tides with the likes of Santini. If he could just race a little bit more enthusiastic early on, because he was mowing him down at the end. I think another that year chasing under his belt. But it's a very exciting division. As you say, there's other horses to come into the mix with Allaho and horses like that. But to me, National Hunt racing revolves around one race, and it's the Gold Cup, and it's going to be another cracker this year.
Mike Vince, even though Album Photo heads the market, and just a quick show of betting anti-post for the Gold Cup. 5-1 Album Photo, 7-1 Santini, Champ, great name, 12-1, Manila Endo, 12-1, Lost in Translation, 12-1, Top of the Game, 14-1, Delta Work 20s, 25s presenting Percy, and it's bigger the rest. But for me, I think the English have 3 or 4 horses here to really go against, or to really put it up to Album Photo in a Gold Cup. How do you see, I suppose, a lot of those English horses being campaigned? What routes will they go, and which one, I suppose, do you think can make up into his biggest challenger?
Well, I can't go through this entire session without mentioning the name Surname, but I'm not sure what they're planning. I think Top of the Game is an out-and-out stare who will probably be Nichols's main hope for the Gold Cup. But, Surname is in the down Royal 3-miler, isn't he, as we talk? They try and see how far his stamina stretches, because his class is there for all to see. In answer to Thomas's, I think that it was very sad, the Tizard horses at Cheltenham, because if it sits alongside the John Gosden nil, Aidan O'Brien nil on Flat Racing's Champions Day at Ascot. If you'd have said to me that before the ball had been kicked, I'd have said you're joking. But Lost in Translation would be a fairy story winner. I think he's got every chance. It is a vintage division because there is no Best Mate in there. There is no Cordo Star in there. There are a lot of them much of a muchness. Sam Crow, they just hinted they might give him an entry for the King George. But I just think I'd like to know what Nichols is planning with Surname, and what is his Cheltenham plan. Is his Cheltenham plan going to be the Ryanair, or might they just see how far the stamina will stretch? Because he's a real class animal. And I'll mention one if I know I'll have the chance. Not necessarily for the Gold Cup, but there is a horse that carries the green and gold trained in this country that I'm convinced we're going to hear a lot more of in the next 12 months, whether it's Grand National or what. A horse called Kimberlite Candy, who is trained by Tom Lacey, is now only 7, so he'll be 8 by the time the serious races have been run. And he was second in the Beecher Chase at Aintree, and then went on and won the Warwick Classic, stays longer than the mother-in-law. And I think I'd want to know what their plans are. Might run in a big race, but obviously while we're talking staying chasers, I'm convinced there is a big prize in that horse somewhere in the course of the season.
Interesting. Album Photo won the hat-trick. Santini is too slow. Champ doesn't jump well enough. Manila Endo, I don't think the RSA form is as good as people think. A lot of people think that he's going to improve an awful lot and he's going to be the one to take out of that RSA. But Thomas, you mentioned Lost in Translation, and the two stayers I'm going to be following this year, both English trained. And I think Lost in Translation, the way he travelled, as you said, Tizard's horses were not going well. Up until when he won at the Betfair Chase at Haylock last year, we were saying if he bet Bristol de Mai that day, what a horse the Tizards had on their hands. He did that. The run was far too bad to be true. Did he have a wind up after the King George? And I just think what a cracker he ran in the Gold Cup, and he will be 9. I think the amount of runs, I think the stats may be slightly against him in terms of he has had quite a few runs. He jumps exceptional, but I do think there's more improvement in the horse, and I think he's a good option there. I think at 14-1, but also Top of the Game. How interesting is he as well? Probably going to start off, I think, in the Hennessy. You would be worried. He is such a big horse. Can he go through the season without getting injured? But I think he's the real sleeper there, Top of the Game. I mean, if he, that RSA Chase, at the start of the season last year, we thought that Santini, top of the game, and Delta work, that form was, everyone thought that form was the best piece of form to go on into the season. I think Santini, even though he hasn't won a Gold Cup, the way he performed, I think that form has stood up reasonably well. Delta work stayed on well at the end. So he is Gold Cup class. I think we know that, and I think he is the one. I think he was tipped up at 20-1 just a couple of days after Cheltenham last year. There was pictures of him looking like a Russian bodybuilder outside Paul Nicholls during lockdown as well. I think if he can stay sound, he really is a sleeper. But that's 2 against the field, top of the game, and lost in translation. 2 stairs to follow for the year. Ronan Groom. We're going to come on to dark horses for the year.
Oh, Barry, if you don't mention Easy Land for a Grand National, Jason Kiley might.
We'll come on to that. We're going to come on to Easy Land. I don't know, is he Gold Cup? Is he? I think it's more.
See him that, but he's going to stay in Chaser division. Like he's going to be hopefully a Grand National horse. I think.
I think so. I think he's probably going to win the cross country for the next 5 years in a row, and I think they probably will have a go at the Grand National. But dark horses, lads, we're going to come on dark horses to follow for the year. And Ronan Groom, we're going to have to start with you, because last year, I think you nearly fell off the seat. I think you were telling me when Real Steel swung in the Gold Cup after you flagging him up. I think at triple figure prices on this show this time last year.
Yeah, and you all laughed, and it would have been a great clip to put out of everyone laughing. He literally, I think he must have traded even money. Brian Hughes statuesque into his face.
He must have. I actually watched it back 2 days ago, and I said. That was unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was watching at the time. And he did look the winner. I was like, what happened? How did he not win?
They went so slow in the Gold Cup last season. I think that just played into his hands. So maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. But look, he got excited for a while on 1,000-1, I think it was. So.
And he's going to back that up this year with a dark horse for the year. Can be any division.
I don't have a good one. Before I give you my dark one, just one more for the Gold Cup. This is my, I guess, more solid horse to follow. I absolutely love Manila Indo. I'm not sure what you're saying about the RSA Chase form. I think that's really, really good form. I think Manila Indo was softened up by Allaho and has just, from a absolute freak run from Champ in the middle of them. And if you actually watch the race again,
can I stop you there just for a second, just for a bit of discussion, just to clarify about Manila Indo, Allaho, and that form. I don't know how Champ can win that race. Like, I mean, should they not have got it done? One of them up front. I mean, did they really? I watched back the race 2 or 3 times. Everyone was saying, they cut each other's throat. I think Manila Indo, for the majority of that race, got a lead off Allaho. And I think he basically only went about 3 out as they were coming down the hill. So I don't know. I just don't.
You were talking about Allaho going for the Marsh. Didn't you back him? Like, he's not a slow horse, Allaho, and I think they've just gone real quick from the front. They're taking each other on, and you look how far they are away. Champ doesn't look like he's going to win until literally the last 50 yards. I just think it's this freak kind of result. If they run the race 10 times again, I think Manila Indo wins it. Even when Champ goes by Manila Indo, we watch it again. He reacts to Champ going by and he runs on again. Like, he's an absolute out and out stare. He's only run 8 times in his life, Manila Indo. Like, it's ridiculous. He's already a two-time winner over the Grade 1 hurdles. He's been first and second at festivals. He has to be the horse with the most scope in the Gold Cup market. I think 14-1 is actually quite a good price, and I usually don't get involved in races this far out. But 14-1, I thought he'd be at least a couple of points shorter than that. The lads have already made the case for Lost in Translation. I think he went huge in the Gold Cup. But Manila Indo, he's my absolute horse to follow for the season. I think when he gets the chance to run, he's only run 3 times over fences. So on his 3rd run over fences, he's finished 2nd in an RSA Chase. He should have won. I think that the world is his oyster this season. Manila Indo, we can win. Maybe go to Leopardstown for the big race of Christmas, the Savills Chase, and maybe the Irish Gold Cup, and go back to Cheltenham where he's already seriously proven. He's won at Albert Bartlett there 50-1. There's so much scope for improvement with him. It's unbelievable. So 14-1 about Manellan for the Gold Cup is my horse to follow for the season.
Do you not have a dark one? No.
I don't really know. I haven't really got stuck into the handicap chases, the big ones yet. I actually thought I was being smart and I got Saint Sonnet out of the Marsh chase, but I see he's already favoured for the race that's normally not called the Bet Victor. I think it's the Paddy Power race now. So at this moment in time, I don't. I might have one next week when we get going.
First of all, I want to catch up and have a listen back to Jane Mangan, who we spoke to earlier on today. And we're going to speak to Jane just about, I suppose, the mares in training, the novice mares coming through, her thoughts on the mares chase and a point-to-point scene and her horses to follow for the year. Let's have a listen to Jane.
From the studios of RT and Trackside Position, of course, of Racing TV, Jane Mangan, you're very welcome to the Champ.ie podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
We've been trying to track you down for a while, Jane. We eventually got you on. And I suppose with the National Hunt season getting into full flow now, I'd imagine there's no lockdown for Jane Mangan. Busy times.
It is at home. I'm actually at home in Cork now most of the time, all the time. And the yard is full. The foals are being prepped for what hopefully will be sale season before Christmas. And while we're busy enough going racing and things, I suppose you prefer to be busier, but I'm not foolish enough to appreciate that I'm in a lucky position, and it's trying times for everybody in everybody's individual situation, so we can only make the best of our own perspective, really.
Absolutely. Well, look, it's great to chat to you ahead, of course, of the new season. And I wanted to quickly start, Jane, with the Enhanced Mares programme, I suppose, in recent seasons. And obviously it's come to light now, the addition of the quality of mares in training in Ireland and Britain. It's gone from strength to strength. And if we start maybe with the addition of the Mares Chase at Cheltenham, I mean, are you pro, or do you think maybe there is a balanced argument, to say that chances of us ever seeing kind of like a Dawn Run, Any Power, triumphs of years gone by, that might be reduced now?
I am very pro it. The argument I think that somebody put forward was that the race is being made for a small number of people. Well, realistically, it's cheaper to buy a mare or a filly, and if you don't have a number of them in your yard, maybe you should just be asking yourself the question rather than questioning the race itself. I think the programme in Ireland has been greatly attributed to a number of people and a number of factors. Obviously, the EVF, the ITVA are great supporters, but I think Willie Mullins, the man has worked wonders for mayors in this country and in Britain as well. And from when I was small, you could not make a profit on a filly foal. She'd have to be an absolute oil painting with the best pedigree in the book just to make her nomination fee. And now, realistically, these days, you can make a living out of selling fillies, and that's purely down to the programme that is there. It's important that you have a beginning to end programme for mares, and I think the addition of the Mares Chase was what was missing, really. It was fine for Any Power and a number of other high profile mares to stay over hurdles, but realistically you'd ask the question, if the Mares Chase was there, it might have tempted more horses, and you might question then, well, will we ever see another Dawn Run if this Mares Chase is introduced? Chances are we probably won't see another Dawn Run anyway. She's special because of the fact that she was unique. And we'll talk about a few mares in Ireland in a minute, but across Britain and Ireland, they are and were always being bred, but they were never probably appreciated or being given the opportunity to be trained properly because the programme was so difficult for them. But now it's changed.
Absolutely, and sticking, I suppose, with the mares hurdle and chase divisions going into this year. Obviously, this side of the water, we've the amazing Honeysuckle, Benny the Jew, Concertista. That's just to name but a few. And this, I suppose, all options are available to both to the ones mentioned there, hurdles and fences. What way do you see both divisions playing out this year?
Well, I think Honeysuckle has the ability to dominate the hurdles division because I can only see her getting better, whereas while she did have the better of Benny at Cheltenham, and yes, tactically it probably went her way on the day, I think there is more improvement to come from Honeysuckle than, say, Benny You might argue against that and say Benny is best mare in training in Britain and Ireland, but they've met once and that has been the score. Now, of course, connections with Richie and Willie Mullins might be tempted to go back fencing with Benny considering the option is there now. But there are some star fillies in there to contest that chase. You have Cabaret Queen, who's been a revelation for the syndicates, Jack Hanselman. You put the kettle on, who obviously won the Arkle last year. She decides to go out and trip. And then you have stalwarts like Lebago Wa, Shattered Love. If they came back to their true form, they're top class mares in their own right. So the chase is very competitive already if they all get to line up. And I'm sure a lot of mares of that profile will be targeted around that race in March.
Obviously, it'd be interesting, I suppose, to see would Willie, split up the likes of Benny or Concertista. I know Benny obviously showed a serious level of form over fences already, and just speaking to David, he was definitely indicating maybe that would be they would take a serious look at that. Sticking with ladies again and moving on to the novice category. We saw She Wears It Well. Obviously, she looked a potential superstar, Jane, at Tipperary. There's lots more though in this division. I know you were a fan of Queensbrook. She ran well in the champion bumper. Gypsy Island, if she maybe might return to the track, looked pretty special as well. Which one, I suppose, are you most looking forward to in the mare's novice sort of division this season?
It's very early to be saying, but I was in Tipperary to see She Wears It Well win the Grade 3 novice against Geldings, and the fact that Willie Mullins then indicated that she could be targeted at the Royal Bond suggested to me that she's up there with his geldings, if not the best or better than his novice geldings. To target the Royal Bond when she could have easily stayed with her own gender says a lot for the man who is so brilliant at dividing out his horses into their particular races. So that was eye-catching. Queensbrook was good on debut, but you'd have to say she's going to have to... Well, look, obviously she got tired and she was given a considerate ride, but on her form last year, she's very good. I would also really love to see Peter Fry's mare, Gypsy Island, finally get to put her credentials on the line and show us what she could do over hurdles, because in bumpers she looked like a mare that could contest group races on the flat. And I thought Finest Evermore of Willie Mullins as the Yates mare was very good in winning her maiden in Tipperary, and then her novice at Listowel. I think she's a mare with a big future as well, but they're all full of potential, and I suppose the four of them are really yet to be tested. Sure, Gypsy Island hasn't even run over hurdles yet, but they're all full of immense potential at this stage.
Yeah, I have to say, She Wears It Well definitely stuck out to me. Listen, I know you're an avid lover of the point-to-point scene, and again, speaking to David earlier, he obviously has mentioned a couple of recruits from the point-to-point scene to Close Sutton. Is there any particular, or we might ask you for a couple maybe if you had them, point-to-point recruits, or ones that are just about to graduate to the track?
Yeah, I didn't get point-to-pointing as much as I would have liked to last year, understandably, because I was on the track more Sundays. But I thought Sir Gerard, I saw his replay. He was a very good winner at Boolka for Elmarie Holden. Now he's gone to Gordon Elliott. He's by Jeremy. There's a lot to like on that front. I think Gordon got a horse called Fiston du Desire. He's by Bucks Boom, and I just read about him in his preview. He's previewing the Racing Post yesterday that he likes him, and I heard that he had been quite impressive when he won for Colin Bowe and came highly recommended. So that they're just two horses that you'd be thinking of, and a mare maybe worth following, and maybe David has already mentioned her, is a mare called Brandy Love. I think she won a 4-year-old at the beginning of the season at Cragmore for Colin Bowe as well. She's by Jetaway, and I think she created quite an impression, even though I wasn't there in person to see her myself. He
didn't mention that one. We'll have to have a chat with him now when we're speaking to him again. Definitely.
Maybe he knows a lot more. Maybe there's no need to mention her, but we'll see.
Well, there was one cool Jetes. I think he mentioned he quite liked the look of him from an appearance point of view. Anyway, finally, can you give the Champ.ie listeners two horses, Jane. We're not going to ask you for one. We're going to ask you for two for the season ahead. Jane Mangan, take it away.
Take it away. Well, we saw one horse already called Calypso. He's a Paisley Park horse that won in France by 12 lengths, I think. His boy Maxios, who we saw had the winner at Cheltenham last year, and I think Calypso could be a leading prospect from the Triumph division this year. I liked what I saw at Punchestown from him. And regarding the other divisions, I'm going to stick very, very obvious, and I'm going to name a mare that should have been top of our list when we were talking about mares, but Epitante. She's still very young. She has more pace than any horse that I've seen in that division for a while, and she gets a fillies allowance against the geldings, and she could win back-to-back champion hurdles, and I don't see anything there to beat her at the moment.
Good call, Jane Mangan. Well, sure, look.
So, Mike Vince, we're going to come on to handicaps now, and is there anything, I suppose, near the back end of last year that you thought had a reasonable mark that you're going to carry into this year? Is there anything that ran at Cheltenham that you think can win a big handicap in maybe the first half of the season? What are we keeping our eyes on?
Well, I mentioned that in an earlier conversation about Kimberlite Candy, who I really do think would be much shorter than some if it was trained by somebody better known and with a higher profile than Tom Lacey. Races for JP, done nothing wrong. And the other interesting one is the horse called the Conditional, who of course won the Ultima at the festival, having been a winner on the first day of Cheltenham this weekend a year ago, and then finished second to the Bacon Rasher in the
Bacon Rasher.
I think he's another horse that will want to follow during the course of the season. He's young, and the thing about those two horses is you might get a slightly reasonable price because they're not with trainers who, if I might use the phrase, you would describe as the usual suspects.
One that's not the usual suspects, and speaking of the Bacon Rasher, this time last year, Mike Vince, I think Roland Groom actually flagged up the Rasher counter on last year's preview for something like a Hennessy. But just one, when we're on the subject of handicappers, for I suppose an under-the-radar trainer, Jeremy Scott, Dashiell Drasher, what a fine specimen he is. And he's one definitely that I'll be looking to, I suppose, if he runs in the Hennessy. He has good form at Newbury, ran well behind Champ on 2 occasions at Newbury, and I think he's your ideal profile. He missed the second half of last season, but I think off his current mark at the moment, he's 33-1 for the Hennessy. He's definitely one, I think, in handicaps that I'd be looking to. He's a big horse now, and a good jumper. But I think a big track like Newbury as well, where he can use his size, and he's a good galloper, I think would suit him down to the ground. Milan native, Thomas Coyle, I wanted to mention him. I know you were a fan going into Cheltenham last year. Look, he's 40-1 for a Grand National. Jason Kiley won't thank me for tipping anything against Easy's land. But Gordon has said that the Nationals in the spring is going to be a target for this fella. Winner, of course, of the Kim Muir. He's still only a 7-year-old. And, you know, last year he was only pricking his ears at the line. He was literally only getting going at the line. I think off his current mark, he's already won at Galway. And I can see him maybe having a quiet spell, shall we say, mid-season. Something maybe like the Bobby Joe Chase at Fairyhouse. Could that be an option? Would he run maybe in the TS with a view then to going to one of the Nationals in the spring? He's 40-1 for the Grand National. He's definitely a horse, I think, going places. I think off his current mark, he could be a stone, if not more, well in overstaying trips. The last handicapper I did want to mention was Night Edition. He's for your old friend David Pipe, Mike. Second in the Boodles last year. I don't know, did you see it back? But he travelled so well in the race, and you know, turning in, I think he looked like the winner. But I definitely think the way he travels, I think David said he was looking at maybe the option of starting him off on the flat before running him back. He's only a 4-year-old, obviously, but something maybe like the Greatwood Hurdle. And he did mention as well, he's off a mark of 137. He did mention that Betfair exchange handicap at Ascot maybe in December. So that's Night Edition. That's my 3. Thomas Coyle, you mentioned Easy's Land. Is there anything else, I suppose, that you will be following, I suppose, or who's on a good mark at this stage?
Yeah, there's one horse there, and it's locally trained to me as well. It's a horse called Captain CJ. Dermot McLaughlin trains him. If you look at him last year, he's on a mark now of 143, but he's chased home horses in beginner's chase like Manila Endo, Carefully Selected, Ronald Pump, Champagne Classic. They're all 150 plus horses. He hasn't been beaten far by them many times. I think off 143, there could be a big handicap like a Troy-Town or a Paddy Power this side of Christmas in him. And then I would imagine with Dermot being so local to Fairyhouse that an Irish Grand National is a tilt. But I definitely believe off 143 he can get one of them big handicaps before Christmas and lead him into an Irish Grand National, still off maybe 149, 150 and be bang there. But he's been ultra consistent, jumps well, ended the season with a win in Navan. For me, I just think of 143 at the minute with the horses that have beaten him and they're 10 plus pounds rated higher. I think he's definitely going to bag a big handicap this side of Christmas, and following into maybe a tilt at an Irish Grand National. That's my one to follow anyway.
Lovely. Ronan Groom, season ahead. Any handicappers or horses who are on good marks?
I don't have a whole deal. I think Hold the Note or Mick Shannon is an interesting horse. That's a horse that they kept back for the Close Brothers, the race that is no more at the Cheltenham Festival. I think he ran second at Warwick in a grade 2 to a horse called 2 for Gold. I think that's quite form. He got a mark of 145, which is the magic mark for that Close Brothers race, and they kept him back for that. I thought he ran okay there. The two horses that beat him, Galvin and Imperial Aura, I think two serious horses. I think Imperial Aura has every chance of making into a grade 1 horse this season. He's really lightly raced. Haven't heard what the plan is for him, but the Ryanair chase would be right up his street. He's off 157 now. And Holden Up ran third to those two. It was only his fourth start over fences, only his third one to complete. I think he could run okay in the big race, the Paddy Power. I think Paddy Power now sponsor what was the Bet Victor. He's got the right sort of profile for that second season chaser. Only 4 runs. He's ran well in the Close Brothers, which is basically over the same course and distance. So Hold a Note for Mick Shannon would be one to keep an eye on maybe early in the season for the big handicap chases.
Lovely. I'm going to go around to each and every one of you, and I'm going to ask you at this stage. We're only going to do one anti-post bet. You've one shot at it, and because I think last year I think Ronan Groom criticised me too early to be back in anti-post. We're going to give you one shot, every single one of you.
Are we doing a Yankee?
We can do it. We can do a Champ.ie season Yankee, and you know what? We're going to give it to Mr. V to kick us off.
I want to say the magic words Cabaret Queen, but I daren't because the syndicate wanted to speak to me. But obviously, we're really looking forward to a season with a great deal of excitement. And
Mike, we never mentioned her. I'm terribly sorry.
The new Mayor's Chase might just be up our street. For me, I will go the big breakaway.
I'm presuming the RSA Chase, or which will have a new sponsor probably by the time it comes along.
It's going to have a new sponsor in the next 3 or 4 weeks. But of course, the great thing is we've got to get them all their sound. At least you can shut your eyes and at least you think you're going to get a run for your money.
That's the RSA Chase. Ronan, you cannot pick a horse in the RSA Chase. Give me a horse, please. Anti-post for the Yankee.
Manila Endo, Gold Cup.
Thomas Coyle.
Look, I'll keep it simple. Fernie Hollow for the Supreme.
So it's up to me to finish it off. Look, I'm not going to change my mind. If I was to listen to David Mullins now, which I probably should do, I wouldn't be touching Concertista, but I think maybe Benny the Jews might venture over fences this year, which will open that division up. I think 11-1 Concertista. She comes alive at Cheltenham in the spring, and I think the way she won there last year, She's a big mare. She's going to improve again. I think if that's the way she goes, and there is talk that she might go over fences herself, but I'm going to put her in for the mare's hurdle at 11-1. That's Concertista. So if that Yankee, what room? If that Yankee comes up, what are we doing on the Champ.ie podcast? Where are we going for a 2021 vacation?
Oh, we're going to the Land Rover sale, and we're buying an unbelievable looking horse for Thomas to train, and we're going to be talking about our own horse next year.
Absolutely. Listen, lads, format for the season. It was great, obviously, to preview the season. Hopefully, we have as much success this year as we had last year. Great, obviously, to have David and Jane on the show again, and some great insight from both of those. But just in terms of the season, we can't wait to deliver the ultimate racing experience right throughout the National Hunt season to the Champ.ie listeners. If you haven't subscribed or follow the channel, please do so. Twitter, Facebook, and we're on all podcast platforms, including YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Follow us now. Follow us right throughout the season. As I said, there'll be more initiatives coming up. Maybe a potential 2-year-old competition coming up to win a share in a 2-year-old with Thomas Coyle. That's planned in the next couple of weeks. And the 8 points to play, I'm sure, is going to be back in some shape or form. But the podcast every Thursday, right throughout the National Hunt season. We've been Barry Doyle and Roland Groom, Mike Vince, and Thomas Coyle. Thanks for listening, and thanks for joining us, lads. We will be back next week.